now. Excellent. Thank you, everyone. So excited to have you with us here. Welcome to today's Bridges webinar. We are so excited to have you. And I want to start off today's webinar by introducing myself. My name's Cody. I'm the Director of Coaching Operations at Paragon One, and I'm here to get you kicked off. And before we get started with our session, I have a couple tips for you. Here at Paragon One, we're dedicated to supporting young people and inspiring them throughout their careers. We do this with our remote externship programs, which you're going to hear a lot about here today. For today's webinar, though, remember to get yourself situated someplace with great lighting and little to no noise. Turn on your camera and be sure to take notes, because these panelists and our moderator are going to be dropping a lot of knowledge that you want to make sure you capture. And remember that we want to hear from you, so make sure you ask questions and share your affirmations in the chat. Now, let me introduce our amazing moderator for today's session, Hannah Doba. Hannah joined Cheddar News in January of 2019 after working as a national correspondent at CBS News in New York. She then anchored a segment called The National Desk with Hannah Doba that aired on 100+ CBS stations across the country every morning. Hannah also reports live from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, focusing on consumer, business, and economic stories that are making headlines. During her television career, she also taught journalism as an adjunct professor at Capital Community College and Connecticut School of Broadcasting. In 2008, Hannah became the weekend anchor of WFSB TV, making her one of the first Pakistani anchors in the US. Hannah's also won several awards, including an Emmy for Best Team Coverage of the Newtown Tragedy, and has since earned several other incredible awards. Hannah, that is quite a biography. Thank you so much for being with us. Welcome. Oh, we're just gonna get you unmuted here in 1 second. There we go.
There we go. Can you hear me?
We can now. Thank you.
Hi,
Welcome,
Cody.
Hannah.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This is such an exciting webinar. I'm fangirling along with all of you because we have some amazing trailblazers. Right now, I'm not at the New York Stock Exchange. I just finished my show, ran here from the New York Stock Exchange. I'm in our pseudo studio in New York City right now, but no one cares about me. Let's go to our amazing, amazing panelists. I'm going to start with Steve Suarez. He is the head of innovation and global functions at HSBC. I'm going to look down at my notes because these career paths are just so interesting and I don't want to mess anything up. So Steve is the head of innovation, like I mentioned, global functions for both finance and risk at HSBC. We know how important that is currently with what we're seeing around the world, leading an innovation ecosystem to find better ways of serving customers through innovative solutions, with a track record of over 28 years of transformation experience in consulting, telecommunications, and of course, financial services. Steve is a strong advocate of design thinking and its application for customer solutions. Again, we know how important that is right now in the banking world. He is passionate about innovation and the growth mindset, which drives his continuous learning. Cannot wait to hear from Steve. Next up, Yasmin Carey, JPMorgan Chase & Company Executive Director. Yasmin, hello, great to see you. Yasmin is an executive director, like I mentioned, in JPMorgan's Credit Markets Division, covering the Western US. That is quite the demographic, pretty huge, Yasmin. Previous to JPM, Yasmin spent 11 years at Wells Fargo Capital Finance in various roles. She began her career as an investment banking analyst, covering large cap oil and gas companies at UBS. Oh, Yasmin, I have so many questions for you with everything going on in the world currently. She is a native Southern California resident. Yasmin currently lives in Santa Monica with her husband and 3 beautiful children. When she isn't working, she's playing tennis and spending some time outdoors. Yasmin holds a Bachelor of Arts in Economics from Rice University and, by the way, a master's in business administration from Columbia Business School. Of course, that is one of the best in the country, in the world, really. And last but certainly not least, Chen Tang. She is Vice President of Consumer Digital Engagement Products at United Healthcare. By the way, if you didn't know, that is the nation's largest healthcare company. So it's quite the feat, especially for a woman in that role. I love this. In this role, she is responsible for using technology to improve customer engagement and health outcomes, including initiatives focused on wellness, wearables, remote patient monitoring, and digital therapeutics. We know the world has changed so much during the pandemic. This is a sector everyone's focusing on. Previously, Tang was Director of Strategic Initiatives supporting United Healthcare Community and State, where she focused on national clinical strategy, local health plan operations, value-based care strategies, and complex care initiatives to help support the health of Medicaid beneficiaries. Again, such an exciting show, such an exciting webinar. I'm so excited to have all of you. I'm going to start with the questions now because I know you guys don't want to hear from me. Let's go to the panel. And Steve, let me start with you. I'm going to pose this question to all of our guests. The audience would like to know your background and, of course, your respective professional pathway to HSBC.
Thank you. And I loved your introduction. I'm going to capture that recording, and anytime I go anywhere, I'm going to use that. There's so much energy. Thanks, everybody. So Steve Suarez here from London, calling in and talking to great people on the call. So from my end, I joined HSBC 18 years ago. And to be honest with you, I thought I wasn't going to be here that long. I heard people saying, 20-year career, and I'm thinking, oh, I'll never get there. And here I am. There. I joined HSBC because it's such a global bank, and I liked traveling around. My parents traveled around their whole life, and coming from immigrants. So I joined the bank, and it's funny. I was in Chicago, and I was working out there, and the reality was that hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Sorry, I thought I got cut up. So I was working in Chicago, and during the financial crisis, and I had responsibility for mortgage, consumer lending, and auto finance. So you guys remember what happened in 2008 when the big financial crisis hit. It was actually not a good time to be in banking. And at that time, I wanted to actually leave HSBC. And my boss had said, all right, Steve, we want to keep you. What can we do to have you stay? And I said, well, you know what? I want to live in Europe. I went to the Sorbonne when I was a lot younger. And within a week, they had me on a plane to Paris interviewing. And I kind of had like a Jerry Maguire moment where my wife said, it doesn't matter what job they offer you, you're going to say yes. So it's kind of like they had me at hello, right? And so I went to Paris, ended up working there, and I've been in Europe for 12 years ever since. And now run innovation for one of the biggest organizations in the world. For you guys that don't know HSBC, we have 230,000 people globally, and we process 1.5 trillion transactions a day. So that's trillion with a T, just to understand the magnitude and how big of an impact that is.
Incredible. Wow, that is so impressive. I have more questions for you towards the end, but let me move on here to Yasmin. Yasmin, I want to pose the same question to you.
Hey, everyone. Nice to see you. It's so exciting to see so many new faces on my Zoom. I'm in my role. We get to meet a couple prospects a day, but never pages of new young faces. So happy to be here and excited to tell you a little bit more about my history. I have not been anywhere as long as Steve. I started out, like I said, in my career on the investment banking side. I really enjoyed the work. I was covering oil and gas, but after a couple of years, I realized it wasn't my passion. So I think that would be one tip I have for you guys. When you're starting your career, take that first job, learn from it, and you'll get to learn what you like better as the years go by. So I pivoted from that and changed my focus to more of a consumer product space, which is where I am today at JPMorgan. My role on the credit market side here is to find interesting, exciting, fast-growing companies, something like a Paragon One, and give them working capital lines of credit to grow the business. So I'm a support player. I get to learn all about the business, ask a lot of questions, and actually give them capital to grow the business and go public and meet their goals and that sort of thing. So that's what I do. That's what excites me. I get to meet a lot of different people, a lot of awesome innovators. And it keeps me going. No day is ever the same. So
That sounds very exciting. And Chen, certainly last but not least, if I can ask the same question to you.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. So excited to be here with all of you. I'm going to take a slightly different approach on background, and you'll see the theme kind of weave throughout as we talk today. But there's two things that I'd start off with just around my upbringing that have really made an impact on who I am today and the career journey that I've taken. So the first is just my grandmother, who's 97, amazing woman who still lives in China, is a pediatrician. And I just remember going to visit her in China, and we'd be walking down the street and a street vendor would give her a bag of oranges because she treated his kid even though he couldn't pay for it, right? And this idea that you could do something with your life that made other people's lives better really stuck with me. Second thing is when we moved to Canada first, my mom had just gotten divorced. She had to give everything up and started off as a dishwasher and a nanny before then finding her career into biotech. And so I did not, who I am today is very much based on people, individuals who gave me a chance and opportunities that I otherwise would have never imagined about, right? So what I'd say is I'm not where I am today because of myself. It's really thanks to other people, and I have not taken that linear journey. So a lot of my career in education has been about taking chances, but also using that time to reflect and assess what I like or don't like. Went to MIT for college, amazing opportunity, knew I liked healthcare, knew I didn't want to be a doctor, couldn't handle needles. So I studied chemical engineering, thinking I'd work in biotech, realized I like people too much, right? Then went into consulting, learned a lot about strategy, business, how do you tell a story? Realized I didn't like consulting because I wanted to actually have an impact and actually build the strategies and execute on the strategies that I was developing. So then I jumped totally over to a startup, went to and joined a startup called Kinsa as the first employee, was just the founder, built that company up through Series B, had a lot of fun launching products there, and then decided, you know what, I really want to learn how to scale a business. And that's what led me to United Healthcare. So one of the things that I really love thinking about is how do you think about the long-term goal and work backwards from there? And that's kind of a general theme that you'll see too, where I'm not afraid to take that long-term view, right? And United Healthcare, United Health Group, as Hannah mentioned, is the largest healthcare company in the world. We touch everything in healthcare except for manufacturing our own drugs. So we have a technology arm, we have doctors' practices, we have our health insurance benefits. And so really why I landed there was to understand from the belly of the beast, right, how they think spend in healthcare. And I get really, because I launch and build products that are really focused on the end user. So how do you and I actually engage with our healthcare today? How do we bring technology to make it easier and simpler for people to access healthcare?
All of your backgrounds are just so fascinating, but there is a similar thread there. And I do want to ask you about this because, look, you guys are minorities, you're women. Two of you mentioned you come from immigrant families. All of your sectors, all of your fields is typically white and male dominated. How did you excel? And Chen, I'll start with you for that.
Sure, that's a great question and something I'm still figuring out as we continue to build out our careers. I think a couple things. One is finding really great mentors and sponsors. It's interesting. I just came off of a conversation where United is actually launching a bunch of sponsorship programs for diverse candidates. And one of the things they talk about is the difference between a manager, a mentor, and a sponsor, right? And you need all three of those to do really well. So the difference, for example, between a mentor and a sponsor is a mentor is someone that you can bounce ideas off of, who is really there to help you work through different issues and to guide you through your career path. A sponsor is actually just as important, especially as you work in a large organization like United, where it's really someone who looks out for you, who advocates for you, right? And so much of being successful as a woman is being comfortable speaking up and advocating for yourself, as much as it is about doing good work. So there's both elements there.
You know, we're seeing so many students trickle in from all around the world. Yasmin, I want to pose the same question to you.
That's a great one. And I am also still figuring it out. I think one thing I found being that different face, that brown face in the room, is you really do stand out. I think one of the things for me is I find I'll go to a networking event and get to meet a lot of different folks. And, you know, I may keep the cards and may remember one or two, but generally speaking, if you're the really unique looking person, they do remember you. You stand out, right? So that's kind of your opportunity to shine. If you can show up and be prepared and be ready and be polished, you're going to walk away as probably the only person who really stands out and is memorable. So I think that's one thing that I've tried to use to my advantage is knowing that I am very different from my male peers, my male white peers for the most part, and they're great and I love them, but I stand out. And I also think for our clients, you know, JPMorgan is a huge, huge global bank, and our clients don't always look like us, right? So I'm working with multinational, international type of companies, and you know, sometimes my clients look like me. And I think, you know, I don't know what the effect of that is on them, but I think, again, you know, I'm also bringing something valuable to the table for my clients.
And Steve, you said you are the son of immigrants. Tell me about your journey here and some of the challenges you may have faced.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because sometimes I feel like I do represent a class of people, and I do want to come off well. So, right, I take a lot of pride in what I do. I take a lot of pride in my work, and I actually want to help other people that came from my background on how to get there. And, you know, through my career, I have been successful. So part of it is bringing other people along with you on that journey. One thing that I would say, and especially for the people on this call, I remember when I was back in college, one key thing is you got to let people know what it is you want. So when I was finishing my degree, I remember I went to a networking event, and go to networking events. You might not like to network, but I can tell you it's such a powerful tool. And I went to a networking event. I sat down, I was having lunch, and I had this job while I was in college doing sales for Latin America. And it's a pretty cool job, but I knew I wanted to get into tech. I wanted to kind of follow my passion. And I was there. I introduced myself. Hello, Steve Suarez. I do this today, but tomorrow I want to do this. And everybody starts introducing themselves. About 4 or 5 guys down at the end say, one of the guys stands up and he goes, "Steve, call me right after this." And I'm like, okay, I'll call him right after this. A week later, I had a job with his company at a tech startup and doing exactly what I wanted to do. Now, if I wouldn't have stood up, been brave, kind of told people what I wanted, I would have never gotten that opportunity. So my comment to you guys is be brave, tell people what it is you want. You'd be amazed on how many people will connect you and try to help you achieve your successes.
That is such fantastic advice. We know this webinar is about building your network and skill set as you launch your career. Yasmin, I'll start with you for this question. What is something you would tell yourself back in college about building connections, networking, like Steve just mentioned, to help you grow in your career?
Gosh, I'd say never stop. Right. And that's one thing, as you get into your career, you'll get busy with things, but you have to never stop networking. But out the gate, I think I'd really echo what Steve said. And it's know what you're interested in, have your elevator pitch and be ready to share that with somebody. And don't be afraid. I think a lot of the times there's like this imposter syndrome, you know, coming from my background, neither of my parents worked in finance. So I had really no one at home to say, well, Mom, like, how do I get ready for this interview? Or Dad, how do I do this? So I always felt a little bit like, do I belong here? Everyone else has a parent in this field or in law, or they're a doctor, and I didn't. So I always felt like, man, do I really belong here? And that imposter syndrome kind of lingers in your head. What you have to do is just block it out. You're standing in front of that person in that moment for a reason. Don't be afraid to speak up and be kind and friendly, and put yourself forward as a candidate for some sort of opportunity, because you're there for a reason and you need to take those opportunities. And And I think that would be my advice, and ignore and drown out that imposter that's in your ear.
Yeah, I wish I had that same mentality in college. Chen, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo everything you just said. I would say two things. One is I am very introverted and shy, and so I find networking events really difficult. And when you add on the imposter syndrome, that makes it even more difficult. But what I think about when I go to these events is your goal is just to have one conversation, right? Start with the first one. Go in, think about it as a relationship, think about you just sitting across the table with somebody or standing across the table with someone and just asking them about their life, right? We can all do that. We do that all the time. That's all you need to do to get started. Don't worry about the broader event, right? That I think just lowering the barrier there helps a ton. I'd say the second thing that I think a lot about, and the advice that I wish I'd known, is to follow up, right? There's an element of making that first connection, but how do you actually continue building upon those connections? And the second and third and fourth conversation are often the most valuable part of any sort of these types of networking events. One of the great questions that I always use is, who else would you recommend I talk to? What other companies do you think might be interesting, right? And I think that just helps you turn the first conversation into something that's much broader and something that you can use.
Don't you guys wish we knew that at college? Honestly, this knowledge, I hope all the students around the world are listening, taking notes, because this is absolutely brilliant. Steve, I was researching you a little bit, and besides, well, before your illustrious career, you started your career as a specialist 12B combat engineer in the US Army. First, I want to say thank you so much for your service. What were the driving factors that made you choose your first job? How do you think it shaped your entire career, even though it wasn't the field you ended up in?
Well, so are you talking about choosing to go to the Army or after I got out of the Army?
A little bit of both.
Okay. I mean, in the Army, I wasn't like the most studious kid in high school, and I needed some structure, and I joined the Army, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to pick up some skill that I'm going to take when I get out. And they told me, all right, do you want to be an engineer, a combat engineer? And I was thinking, wow, that sounds really good. I'll go to the Army, be a combat engineer. I'll design bridges. I'll do all this other stuff. After I got out of boot camp after 13 weeks, I realized that a combat engineer clears minefields. So they called me up, and that was my job. By the way, I'm scared of heights, and my unit actually jumped out of Blackhawks and Huey helicopters, which actually taught me something about what courage is, because I was scared and everybody would be laughing that my knees would shake when I was coming out of a plane, out of a helicopter. But then my drill sergeant would say, well, Steve is scared, but he still does it. And that's the definition of courage. So yeah, I joined the military, and that's what helped me realize what I didn't want in my life. Because at that moment, I was in the Mojave Desert digging a minefield at 3 o'clock in the morning. I was cold, I was miserable, and a snake came out and almost bit me while I was digging up this minefield. And at that point, I said, you know what? I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to get my undergrad. I'm going to get my MBA at fantastic schools. And I'm going to be the brass sitting in that tent, giving out the strategies and working with people. And at that moment really turned my life around, because that's what really motivated me to go to school, go back, become an MIT alumni, and finish school. So.
Steve, have you ever thought of writing a book?
No, trust me, I got plenty of stories. I could keep you guys going. And then, so what happened is I got out of the military, and then I found a job, and I made a mistake. And this is one of the things I did want to tell you guys. I followed money. I didn't follow my passion. Here I thought, all right, I'm going to be making money. I'm going to bank all this money, but I was miserable. I was making really good money. Everybody was pretty impressed, and they were thinking, wow, you're a jet setter, you're doing all this other stuff. But it wasn't what I really liked inside. So if I could go back, I definitely would not be chasing money. I'd be chasing what I'm passionate about and what I like to do. And I'm doing it now, but I'm doing it later in my career. I wish I would have done it a lot earlier.
Oh, I know I've said this over and over, but this is advice. It's just speaking to me. All of you are so incredible. Yasmin, can you recall an interview where you took with a recent grad? What was so memorable about that interview, and what made the student exceptionally good that actually stood out to you?
Gosh, we meet a lot of really impressive candidates, that come through. We always laugh internally. We say, boy, if I had to get into this internship program this summer, I would not get the job because they wouldn't hire me back. So we do see a lot of really amazing candidates. I think really what stands out to me are somebody who's done a little research about the position, is a little bit prepared about what the role actually is, and comes with really, more than surface level questions. So I think, being prepared, looking professional. I know you guys are students, and I look at me, I'm in a casual sweater working from home, but it's still, even if it's Zoom, it's still an interview. Get dressed up, look professional. And then ask questions, right? We don't expect you to know how to do the job when you show up. That's our job, is to teach you, but come in with a lot of interesting questions so that we can sense your enthusiasm. I'd say 9 out of 10 times, no matter what your graduating degree is in, we really will veer towards the most enthusiastic candidate, because to get through some of these early analyst roles, especially at a bank, it's a little bit of drudgery. So you gotta feel like you're really interested. We have to feel like you're really passionate and excited. So come with a lot of enthusiasm.
I want to go back to one thing you said. You always want to dress for the job you want. So even if you're a student, just, try to present yourself as well as you can. I think that's such great advice. Chen, I want to come to you. What was the biggest risk, in your opinion, that you took in your career, and why did you take that step?
Yeah, great question. It's funny because I would say my answer changes every few years, which is probably a good sign that I'm continuing to take more and more risks as I go forward. Right. And I think that that's one of the important things, where the next decision, especially since I'm in the first, 15 years of my career, this is the time to take risks, to learn things, to try and actually fail sometimes, but fail smart. So for example, early on, I would have told you that leaving BCG, leaving management consulting to go join an early stage startup where I took a, half a salary cut plus, there was no funding, there was no product out there, that would have been a risk, right? After that, actually leaving startup world, where I was in San Francisco, and all of my advisors, all of our investors were telling me, don't go to business school. Nobody goes to business school anymore. You should just stay and work in tech, which obviously has ballooned and been extremely successful. But I decided to invest in my long-term career, and I moved back to Boston and went to business school. And then most recently, right, this decision to go from business school and not go back into startups and tech, but instead take probably the uncool path, and actually go work for a large company. That was really scary. I moved across the country to Minnesota. I didn't know how to drive at the time, had to learn very quickly. It was very cold as well, had no friends there whatsoever. And I never worked at a company that had 350,000 employees before, right? And so it was a huge change for me, but I knew what I wanted to get out of it. It goes kind of back to what Steve was saying. If you know what your end goal is and you know what you're asking for, then it makes you feel more comfortable to take some of those risks as well. So yeah, every step should scare you a little bit. Embrace that discomfort. It means you're probably leaning in towards the right things.
All right, let's be vulnerable for a few moments, guys. I know you guys aren't used to this with your high-powered positions, but let's try this. And Yasmin, I'll start with you here. What is a big failure or mistake you made in your career? And more importantly, how did you recover from it?
I have so many, guys, and there's things that get under my skin at the end of the day, where I've sent out an email or I did something and I say, gosh, I should have done that differently, or I should have done it like this, or should have done it like that. I think big picture, I'm a friendly, very outgoing person, and, did well, got a good job in investment banking out of undergrad. And I kind of thought that was it, right? So I went out, I got the job, and I thought, okay, well, everyone else wanted this job and I got this job, I'm doing great. And I have to say, at the start of my career, when I probably shouldn't have, I took my foot off the gas a little bit, like Chin said, I kind of lost track of, what do I want? What's next for me, or what's the next step for me? So I have to say, once you get that, first role, you may not love it. It may feel like a little bit of drudgery, especially if you end up in, doing a lot of modeling or on the analyst side of things in finance. Never lose sight of what that next step is. And I know that's kind of what I did. I spent 2 years in investment banking and oil and gas. And in my heart, I should have been out of there after a year. I had no passion for that space. So keep listening to yourself. Don't drown out your dreams because you're tuning into what everyone else is trying to do or what they want. And have those conversations with people you feel comfortable with, and whether that's someone in the organization or even someone outside of that field. Like, these are my goals and this is what I'm interested in. So,
Steve, same question. Big mistake in your opinion, and how did you recover?
Well, I can, there's laundry list of stuff. I still make mistakes today. But you're going to be comfortable making mistakes. I think when you're innovation, if you're not making mistakes or taking risks, you're not really innovating. So you're going to make some, you gotta be okay with ambiguity and to be able to deal with that. I agree with Jinjin. I think right now at your ages, take all the risks now. Do all the stuff you want to do now. You can afford to take the risk. I'm telling you, I guarantee every one of you are going to make a lot of money and you guys are going to do well. That's why you're here right now. And I remember when I was back in college, my professor would tell me, everybody in this room will end up being a millionaire one day. And it's probably true. Everybody will. And I'm sure the people on this call will be the same way. So take the risks now. Don't be afraid to go out there and do things. If you're comfortable, I think back to Jasmine, if you're comfortable, then you're not stretching yourself, and you got to constantly stretch yourself and get yourself out of a comfort zone. Unfortunately, if you're really stretching yourself, that imposter syndrome never goes away. I was asked to present at a quantum computing forum. Now, I'm not a quantum physicist, because I run innovation and I run the program, I'm sitting here trying to explain quantum computing to people with PhDs way smarter than I am, but they're sitting there listening to me, and that was part of my job. And was I uncomfortable? Hell yes, I was uncomfortable, but you still get out there and do it because that's what you do. And then you start feeling comfortable about doing that. So now I can have those conversations about quantum computing, and I kind of feel like I know what I'm talking about. So I kind of get a bit dangerous from that perspective. So,
Chen, your thoughts here?
Yeah, I learned so much just by listening. I probably just want to go on mute and listen, but I would say not trusting my gut on people, right? So there's what the business does, the opportunity, what you can learn, and then there's the people that you work with. And every single major mistake or failure that I think about in my career is when I haven't trusted my gut on either the team that I'm going to be working with or the person that I'm hiring, right? Because at the end of the day, those interpersonal reactions are what makes an experience worthwhile, valuable, or make sure that you're actually doing work that aligns to your value. So I have so many versions of the same mistake, and I'm continuously learning and pushing myself, because oftentimes we stress about, is this company going to grow? Is this the right strategy? Is this, does it look good on my resume? And at the end of the day, it's the people that really matter, right? It's the person that you're going to be sitting side by side with, whether you're growing tremendously or you're going through a rough period. You want the right people by your side.
I want to ask, and Steve, I'll start with you for this question. What are some key things that senior leaders like yourself, like all of you, are looking for when assessing students who are applying for internships and jobs at your company that obviously are very coveted positions?
Yeah, I mean, I liked what you said, Jasmine, and also Hannah, about dressing the part. It's funny when I get some people come to interview and they just don't dress the part. They don't take it serious. And sometimes I get this sense of entitlement, and that turns me off when I go to interview. So things I look at, I look at the attitude, I look at passion, I look at hunger, I look at people that can demonstrate that they can work within ambiguity. But Chin Chin said it, we're there to teach people. We're not looking for you to have all the answers. And if you show up and I say, do you have any questions? You're like, no, thank you. To me, that's kind of a no-no. So do not go to an interview and not ask a smart question. Why are you doing this strategy, or how are you approaching this? And then also be prepared for hypothetical questions. I love asking hypothetical questions to actually not really stress people out, but kind of get them out of their comfort zone to see how they deal with that stress right there. So I'll say things like, well, if I gave you 10 things to do and there's no right or wrong answer, would you be the person that did all 10 but so-so quality? Or would you be the person that did 7 perfect and left 3 undone? Now, that question, everybody's, well, do I prioritize? No, I don't want to hear anything. Which one would you pick and then why? And then you start understanding their thought process and how they approach it. So there isn't a wrong answer, but it kind of describes who you are and what we're looking for. So that would just be ready for some hypothetical questions, because just trying to talk to my son and him doing interviews, he got stuck by some of these, and it happened. So that would be my advice.
Steve, before I move on, I have to ask, I know you said there's no right answer, but what do you prefer hearing as an answer for a question like that?
There is. So it depends on the job, right? So if I'm looking for quality where these guys can't make a mistake and it's life or death, then it's about perfection, which there's no such thing as perfection, but somebody who looks at the quality. Now, I'm a natural person that loves to get things done. So I'm the kind of guy that'll do 10 things. And yeah, I'm okay with a couple problems here, but I like the production. I like getting things out there. But most problem is, can they handle the question? Are they trying to clarify the question? Do they get really nervous? Or, I had one person that decided not to answer the question because they felt uncomfortable with it. And so they made my decision to hire them or not hire them very easy.
I'm assuming that person was not hired. Chen, same question for you. What are you looking for when it comes to students applying for internships or positions at your company?
Yeah, I think Yasmin actually covered a lot of it earlier, but that level of intellectual curiosity, right? Are they asking good, thoughtful questions? Are they really genuinely curious about learning more? There's no expectation that you know anything to start, right? But you have to want to know more in order to actually succeed in the organization. 2, being prepared, doing your research, absolutely critical. And then 3, being actually transparent about where your weaknesses are, right? So it's not about covering up and trying to appear perfect. There's, don't go on a laundry list listing out all of your weaknesses and failures, but being thoughtful about how you're actually tackling some of those weaknesses. It shows this opportunity for growth mindset, which I think all of us are looking for.
And Yasmin, same question for you.
Gosh, I think, yeah, I think we've covered it. I think we've nailed it. I mean, be as prepared as you can be, look good, feel confident, do whatever you need to do to kind of mock interview. I know I always do that before I'm going into a new interview situation, and feel as comfortable as you can. And remember, I mean, as a person, we always usually there's like a volunteer group who's doing these interviews. We want you to succeed. I'm not trying to stump candidates. I'm just trying to get a sense of who you guys are.
I love that. All right, guys, we have about 8 minutes before we start taking student questions. So I want to ask my last question for all of you. Jasmine, I'll start with you since you're up. Could you talk more about your internship program and any other programs like work shadowing programs or case study contests that students who want to work for you should watch out for or keep an ear out for?
Yeah, I mean, JPM, it's a huge, awesome organization. We have a lot of like long-term established internship programs. So get on our website, look and see what the opportunities are. There's plenty of them. You can go in a lot of different directions. There's endless things that you can do within an organization this size. As far as preparation, if you've got a network of friends at school or any kind of club you can circle back with as you work to prepare, go for it. Or if you have any friends who have graduated who works for that organization, try to reach out and get prepared there. If you want to get really crazy, you can always ping a stranger on LinkedIn and say, hey, I'm interviewing for a job at the organization. I really want to be prepared. I really care. Can you spend 5 minutes and talk to me about this group? I bet you, 50% of the time, you'll probably get a very happy person to help you prepare in that case. Did I answer the question?
You did, because honestly,
Okay.
I still do that in my career where I reach out to people on LinkedIn, and most of the time, to your point, they're happy to help. A lot of these people want to help students and people who are following in their career path. Chen, same question for you. What should students know about internships and programs at your company?
It's an area that we are investing a ton in. Similar to Yasmin, we have a website as well. It's careers.unitedhealthgroup.com, and there's actually a filter in there for internships. And again, we're a huge company. We're growing, planning to double in size in the next kind of 5 years or so. So we need great talent, people who are curious, and we touch all aspects of whether you want to do business or accounting, or you want to do engineering or product, or even kind of healthcare in general. There's a ton of these roles available. Now, what I'd say is there's kind of 3 categories that I think about. One are we have internships that are focused on an actual functional area, right? You want to work in accounting, we have internships focused on accounting. We also have rotational programs that give you broader exposure and are a great way to get a breadth of experiences, even within a summer. And then the third is to really focus on a market. So this is one of the unique things, I think, where we actually run market operations. So if you wanted to be more on the market and just understand what it's like to be on the ground serving a community, we have a lot of those internships as well. But the website is definitely the best place to go and look. We're always hiring, and so you can always reach out, similar to what Yasmin and Henna were saying, reach out on LinkedIn. Very open to creating new opportunities that don't exist as well. So that goes back to the interpersonal relationship. Find someone, build a relationship with them, and craft your own internship.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. Steve, what are your thoughts and advice here?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and post the link to our website. And so there's a lot at HSBC. I mean, just like these other organizations, we're in 64 countries all around the world. We have opportunities in global banking, in strategic consulting, in wealth management, quantum. And so there's a lot of opportunities in the bank. Actually, what I'm excited about, and I think it was my last or the post before that, and I'm with Jasmine, not Facebook, LinkedIn is fantastic. And it's a great avenue. And you guys don't, I wish I had that when I was younger, because I would have gotten a lot more connections. So make sure you're leveraging your network within LinkedIn, and you can reach all these companies. I'm actually starting a program called Entrepreneur in Resident. So what we're going to be doing is probably putting 5 new positions out there, where we're going to ask young people who want to start a company or have some ideas to come into the bank and give the bank a fresh perspective on things like quantum computing, Web3, AI, machine learning, blockchain, metaverse. We're doing a lot in the metaverse space. And so take a look at those opportunities. And I think those are going to be great roles, because what we're going to do is kind of incubate those positions, those teams, that if something comes out, we can spin out and drive new organizations. Part of my job is we invest in small to medium term fintechs. We have about $250 million in investments, and I'm trying to get that number pushed up, because I'm almost at the cap of that, where we invest in small companies. And I'm big on entrepreneurship, and I think if I were back where you guys are right now, that would definitely be an avenue that I would look to drive my career. But that's me.
To our panelists, it's been a while since I've been out of school, but I'm soaking all this in, and I'm so jealous of the students listening, because this is gold. This is such good advice. Speaking of which, we are going to open it up to students. There are a lot of questions coming in, guys. People are really intrigued and inspired by you. I'm going to start with, I believe, and please correct me if I say your name wrong, and please remember to turn your camera on when you answer when you ask your question to our fabulous panelists. Ruki, I hope I'm saying that right. Ruki, are you here?
Hi, I'm here. Yes, I'm here.
Hi, I know you're asking
my name right.
I'm sorry, say your name again.
You pronounced my name right. I go by
Okay,
Ruki.
good. You have a question about background and discrimination. Who would you like to ask?
I'd like to ask all the panelists, actually. I'm just very curious to see how workplace discrimination can get to you and how you fight against it. And I just wanted to hear all the panelists.
Great question, Chen. I'll start with you. Or Steve, please go take it.
Yeah, which is sorry. I was just, the thing is, from my end, if you look for it or you make the assumption that people are, you're going to find it. If you make the assumption that there's other things going on and that it's the last thing that it possibly can be, you kind of give room. And to be honest with you, if people underestimated me or they treat me bad, eventually they'll get to see that they made a mistake. And so I always like to kind of see that side of it. So don't look for signs, because if you do, you will find it. Just work hard, be the best at what you can be. Then success, you can't compete with success. So just focus on the success. Don't focus on, somebody talk to me, because I could tell you that 9 times out of 10, it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with something going on in their lives. And you just happen to be at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Steve,
That's
I'm
my
serious
thought.
about you writing that book. I'm not kidding. You definitely need to put this on a pen and paper. Chen, same question for you from Rookie.
Very similar answer. I'd say 1, assume positive intent. 2, what I'd say is, have one person that you can vent to. Like, sometimes I get very emotional about it when I think that happens, and you need some outlet to do that, but keep it time boxed, keep it limited to one person, and make it constructive, right? Find a broader community of folks that you can bounce ideas off of around how do you overcome those situations, or how do you prove yourself. To Steve's point, I think the best response is just to continue succeeding. And so everything that you can do, just focus on building that community and support system to help you be more successful.
We have so many questions coming in, so I'm going to move on to Jordan L. Esperance. You want to talk about competition in the field? And Yasmin, I'll have you take this question from Jordan.
Sure.
Hi, it's L'Esperance. It's French. But my question was, so I transferred into business just a few semesters ago, and I feel like I'm a little behind, because a lot of people, I'm sitting here at senior status technically, and there's a lot of people who are sitting in freshman and sophomore who seem to have a lot more experience with internships and just, stuff to put on their resume than I have, despite a little bit here and there in high school, but it just kind of feels a little bit outdated. Is there anything I can do or, things I can do to spice up my resume or potentially compete with people who have a lot more experience than I do at this point already?
Jordan, my first advice is, at your age, there's no one with a lot more experience. You guys are all so young. And from our perspective, looking at you, we think everyone's just in the starting phase of their career. So don't be discouraged. There's no one with years and years of experience over you. I would encourage you to highlight what's unique about you, right? So you changed your major. It sounds like, halfway or towards the end of your college. So you have a couple of years doing something that's going to be unique and something that you'll bring to the table when you start that job that, your peers won't have. So highlight that. Don't be afraid to highlight that. We have some of the best hires we've ever had that were history majors, that weren't finance majors at all. But like I said, what we liked about them is they were enthusiastic. They asked a lot of good questions. And we're really receptive to that, and put the effort in to try to network. If you can kind of reach out, find the right people at these organizations and say, hey, this is who I am. I'm really excited. This is my background. That one-on-one ability to kind of sell yourself, I think will be really great.
Let's move on to Mateo Hernandez. I believe he has a question for Chen. Mateo.
Hello, thank you guys for taking this opportunity to listen to all of us. My question is about finding a mentor. You guys talked about how integral it is to find a mentor. So I'm just curious on what you guys think are the best steps to find a mentor. Thank you.
Yeah, great question as well. This is going to sound very simple, but ask, right? I think oftentimes there's this fear of, hey, I need to make the perfect connection. I need to build this whole relationship before I can turn someone into a mentor. Oftentimes some of this is just starting and asking that question. The other thing I would say is it's really valuable to understand some of what you're hoping to get out of a mentor relationship, right? Know that every mentor is going to learn just as much, if not more, than you will from that relationship. So it's very much a two-way thing, but go in with something that you're hoping to work on or learn from. And that, again, narrows the scope and makes it simpler to make that initial ask as well.
Rashinder Verdi has a very interesting question. Rashinder, why don't you ask Steve the question you have?
Yeah, I just have a question, whether it is always too late to switch career paths. Like, I'm right now a business major and I want to go into software engineering. So can you just answer that question?
It's never too late. I could tell you what, I'm 52 and I'm still changing things now. So, and and I'm big on continuous learning. I think I wrote down, I'm taking 3 courses. I'm doing a digital transformation course at Stanford University. Actually, I'm turning in my final term paper tonight. I'm doing a quantum computing fundamentals course at MIT, and I'm doing a corporate directors course at Harvard. It's never too late, and keep investing and do what you want to do. Pursue your passion.
And we'll go to Michael Chen, who has a question on company culture. And Yasmin, I'll have you handle this one.
Thank you so much for running this awesome webinar. And Steve, Yasmin, and Chin Chin, thank you so much. My question is actually particularly tied to culture. And as I've networked and as I've contacted lots of people in the field, they really emphasize culture. So I would love to kind of have you guys embellish or basically expand on culture in your respective organizations and how you emanate culture within your work with clients would be great to know. So thank you.
That's a great question. It just depends. I think the overall culture, and I haven't been at JPM so long, guys, and we didn't touch on that, but I spent most of my career at Wells Fargo. But I'd say overall, the ethos of JPMorgan is we are responding to the global market. So we want our team to mimic the team that we're servicing. So, there's all kinds of different organizations that if you are into DEI or you are into, Asian dance, I mean, there's little micro cultures throughout and teams that have nothing to do with banking or finance at all. So there's little micro cultures and teams that you'll find in an organization this size to, fit your interests. And as far as, what we want to represent, we want to mirror back our clients. And if we want to do that on a global basis, we have to be a global team. So does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you, Yasmin.
Next question is from Janelle Rudal. And Chen Chen, I'll have you handle that question about job searching.
Sure.
Janelle,
Sorry,
are you there?
what's the question?
I'm waiting for the student. Janelle, are you there? Janelle Rudal?
Yes.
Hi. Okay,
Hi.
your question. And Chen Chen, I'll have you handle this.
I want to ask about how to go about, what are the steps to go about searching for a job as a recent graduate with no experience, with no work experience.
Yeah, great question. I think often the 0 to 1 of getting started is often the hardest part, right? I think what Paragon One offers is an amazing opportunity to actually practice getting some experience under your belt. So externships are a great way to do that. I did several throughout college as well. I'm also a big fan of side projects, right? You often think about experience as needing to be a full-time job. That's not true at all. It's, can you help a professor with someone? Can you go to a local business and just ask to shadow someone for a couple hours a week? How do you just start practicing some of those skills and building out your resume early on? I think that's, look for creative ways to do that, and don't just think within kind of the traditional full-time job piece.
Next question from student Julia Hetwer on job skills. Steve, I'll have you take that question.
Yeah, hi. So my question is, what general skills would you kind of recommend that students advertise in CVs or in interviews? So kind of not even depending on what field we're interested in, just kind of in any field, what general skills do employers kind of want you to advertise?
People love leadership skills, and they like to see that you've done things and that you can lead teams and actually be led. And so, join clubs, try to lead clubs. It's funny, my son was telling me that he went to join a club and he didn't get in. And our strategy was, well, then he's going to create a competitive club. And now he's got some people that are going to sponsor him. And now he's going to be the president of a club that competes on that. And so look for opportunities where you can show leadership, where you can help. I'm in the technology and innovation space. So the things that I look at things like machine learning, AI, metaverse stuff is getting really hot, cloud computing. So there's maybe specifics, but it depends on where you're targeting your area. but across the board, people love to look at people who can lead and make things happen.
Our next question is from Paisley Holbert from the University of Oklahoma. And Yasmin, if it's okay, I'll send this question your way. Paisley.
Hi, everyone. I was just kind of curious as how you narrow down jobs that fit your skill set and just kind of how you figure out what your strong suits are. And this question is just especially coming from someone who I feel like I have a broad skill set and I'm not quite sure where to apply my strong suits and what kind of jobs to look for outside of when I graduate.
That's a great question. And I felt the exact same way when I finished college and I got my first job. I think get your foot in the door, get into a role. If you can find a program that's some sort of established analyst, or sorry guys, I only speak in banking, some sort of, entry-level program that's rotational, where you get to try different things. I know at JPMorgan, that's very common. We'll hire someone out of college and we'll let them experience a couple different roles in different groups, and then come back at the end of 2 years and say, you know what, I like that best, or this suits my personality the best. So if you can find something like that that lets you sample without, committing, do that. But don't worry about it. Your first job out of college, I don't know. I mean, I guess there are some people, but no one's still at their first job out of college. Just get your foot in the door, get to know yourself. It's going to be fine.
Our next student is from Boston University, Jonathan Suarez. And Chen, you take this one.
Hello. So this question is open to the whole panel. And my question is, in your guys' experience, can you give an example of an intern that you worked with and considered an archetype of what makes a great intern? Like, what qualities did that intern have that made you realize this is your personal standard of what an excellent intern is?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I'm thinking, sorry. So I think a few things. One is being really thoughtful about what questions you have up front. So investing in discovery up front, right? So I think oftentimes there's a desire to prove yourself and get things done right off the bat, and we don't spend enough time actually recognizing and acknowledging that we don't have all the answers. And I think I think about at United, one of the best interns that I just worked with this summer actually spent 2 weeks just framing up a whole list of questions of like, here's vaguely what I think you're asking me to do and the project outcomes, but here's all the things that I don't understand. And can we actually talk about that first, right? And that actually allows us to have that conversation together, make sure that we're all on the same page, and making sure that I can actually be most helpful to them. Because the funny secret is, my biggest fear is not actually being able to be a good manager or a leader for my team, right? It's not about actually having someone who can do all the work. It's actually like, am I being effective as a people leader? And so the person who actually comes to me with those questions, it makes my job 10 times easier. I think the second piece of it then is driving towards outcomes and not being afraid to check in regularly against progress towards those outcomes, right? At the end of the summer, at the end of any internship, you want to be able to look back and say, I did this, right? I had XYZ impact, or like I at least learned this and helped the team learn this. And establishing that up front and making sure you're regularly checking in, I think is critically important as well.
So believe it or not, guys,
I'll have to recuse myself because that's my son. And he won't listen to any of my advice anyway. So.
Well, guys, believe it or not, an hour has gone by. We can talk to you guys forever. I just want to say thank you to Steve Suarez, Yasmin Carey, Chen Tang. This is invaluable advice. And Cody, yes, a round for all of you. And Cody, I'll send it over to you.
Amazing. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Hannah. This was absolutely incredible. I am so thankful and appreciative of everyone's time on behalf of Paragon One, our panelists, Hannah, our moderator. Thank you so much. We hope it was informational. We think it was. I want to let you know that if you're interested in building your skills and earning some experiences that are in alignment with your career already, or your major, what you've been working on, or maybe if they're not, check out some of our remote externships. Go to paragon1.com/externships. I promise you, we have something for everyone. And if we don't, send us a message and we're going to find it for you. So students, whoever you are, wherever you're joining us from, thank you so much for making today's Bridges webinar absolutely amazing. Thank you all so much and be well. We'll talk to you soon. Bye now.